Okay, good afternoon or good morning to everyone that's attending today's Wednesday webinar. This is a little bit of a late March Wednesday webinar, but I want to thank you all for joining. Once again, my name is Scott Clayson. I'm the Marketing Director here at TimeSolv, and I will be your host today as we run through some of the tips and tricks to get the most out of TimeSolv. So again, to recap the purpose, I know many people attend these webinars every month, but if you're new, the idea behind these webinars is we send out our tip of the week, usually on Mondays, but generally it's once a week, to further educate our users about our product, new features that we've brought online, or just features you may have forgotten about since you first got your training or you just plain never knew about. We know that a lot of attorneys have to complete CLEs, and so this is sort of like your TimeSolv CLE. And for those who aren't attorneys attending, it's good to be able to see some of those things in TimeSolv you may not have even known you could do. So we generally do these on the second Wednesday of each month, and I apologize, this is obviously the third Wednesday of the month. Got a bit backed up because we were actually attending the ABA Tech Show in Chicago the first week of March. So normally, and starting in April, we'll get back to our second week of the month. So mark your calendars down for Wednesday, April 11th at this same web URL. I'm pretty sure it'll be the same one. I'm actually thinking of moving to a different webinar platform. So if you do see an email that has, when you sign up for next month's, that has a little bit of a different address to go to, that is why. It might look a little bit different. We generally cover about 4 topics during this webinar. I expect, it really depends on how many tip of the weeks have been put out and what things we need to cover. I expect this webinar will last about 45 minutes to an hour. I will for sure go no longer than an hour to respect everyone's time. I am recording this session and we'll send out an email later with a link so you can watch this if you just need to review something again or you had to leave early for some reason. Everyone is on mute on the webinar here. There is a Q&A area where you can ask questions. Right at the top of your screen, there's like a little thought bubble or dialogue bubble that you can click on, and that's where you can enter any chat questions. The only thing I do ask, as I've mentioned before on these webinars, is perhaps hold off on your questions till the end, because I have found that many times somebody might ask a question and I'm about a feature we're talking about, and I might answer that question 30 seconds later, a minute later. So wait till I'm all finished going through the various tips, and then I'll open it up to ask questions. So without further ado, let's get going and see what's on the table for the week, or for this month, I should say. So here are the 4 items that we're going to talk about, some of the tips and tricks that have gone out as our tip of the weeks the last couple of weeks. First is enabling LawPay payments through the client portal. We have LawPay is probably it is the industry standard for accepting credit card payments, mainly because they also handle trust accounting very well. You can do both trust accounts and regular just operating accounts, and you can have your clients pay via credit card using their system. LawPay is integrated with TimeSolv, so you can send out invoices via email with a link where your clients can then just click on, go to the client portal, pay via credit card right through that portal, and that's using LawPay. We know there's a lot of clients actually who might use both LawPay and TimeSolv who don't know that, and they send their clients a link to the LawPay login, and so it's 2 separate things. You then have to record the payment that came in through LawPay in TimeSolv. The beauty of having the integration built is as soon as a client makes a credit card payment using our portal, using LawPay, the invoice is automatically recorded as paid. It automatically records the payment and allocates it towards that invoice. So it takes away a lot of the work you have to do in recording a payment and allocating that payment against an invoice. So we'll show you how to do that. The second thing we'll talk about is consolidated invoicing. That's a brief tip. Surprisingly, there are some other providers out there that don't allow you to present a consolidated invoice to your client. And by consolidated invoice, I simply mean putting multiple matters that you might be working on for one client onto one invoice. And you don't have to send out one invoice at a time to the same client for different matters. Then another nice feature of TimeSolv that some people may not be aware of or don't realize they could be utilizing this is that we do have the ability to have time and expense entries approved by other people in the firm before they ever get placed on an invoice. A lot of firms do have, the senior partners or whoever it may be reviewing the invoices to make sure the time entry before they go out, before to make sure that all the time entries are correct, the expense entries are correct. You can proactively have it set up in TimeSolv so that those time entries or expense entries can't even get placed on an invoice until they're approved by whoever you want. And that approver can be notified that they have entries they need to approve in order for those to be placed on an invoice. Again, it's that upfront check on entries before they ever get sent to a client, and make sure your billing is accurate, and there'll be no, this can really lessen any disputes you might have with clients over time entries if they're getting approved ahead of time before they ever get put on an invoice. Then the last thing we're going to cover this month is custom fields. We just rolled this out last week with an update that allows you now to create as many custom fields as you'd like for clients and matters. So I'll show you how you can do that, and you can record information about your clients and matters in these custom fields. This is something a lot of our clients have been asking about for a while, so we have that in place now, and I'll show you how that works as we get to it. So let's start first with enabling LawPay through our client portal. So there's a couple of step process. First, you need to be in your LawPay account and authorize TimeSolv as an integrator. You then set up in TimeSolv your payment profile, and then you enable the ability to receive payments using LawPay. So let's get right to it, and I'll show you how that all works. Okay, so we're logged in to TimeSolv here now. So the first step is to enable authorize TimeSolv in LawPay. So I'm going to go over here to LawPay, and I'm going to sign in with my account. This is just a dummy account test mode, as you can see that we have here, is because we're partners. You want to, once you're in LawPay, you go under your name here to developers. And once you land there, and that's what this page is right here, you click on Authorize Application, which I've already done in this case, but then you would select TimeSolv out of this list. TimeSolv is not listed right now, obviously, because it's already been authorized in my test account here. But you would select TimeSolv and hit Authorize Application. When that happens, then you'll see something like this pop up where it will show you, that you have authorized applications. And then you want to just click on Show Credentials. And you want to leave this page up here to kind of reference here in a second. So now you've authorized LawPay, or authorized TimeSolv within LawPay. Now we need to go over on our end of the spectrum and create our payment profile to accept credit card payments. So we want to go into Payments to Settings, and most of you should already have set up your bank accounts. You may have your IALTA account for your trust accounting, and you have just regular operating account. Now, I already have a LawPay account set up with my first operating account here, so I have a second account. I'm going to come over here, I'm going to create payment profile. That's what you want to click on. And the payment provider is LawPay. That's the only provider we have right now. And it's asking you for the secret key. So you want to come back over here, and this is, for you, will say live secret key, not test. I'm in test mode because of the type of account I have. But this is the secret key. You just want to copy this information. So I just select it all, and I'm going to, hit copy. Come back over here. I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to say, it automatically, as you see, it starts populating, saying, okay, I'm going to authorize my test operating merchant account, not my trust account. You could do your trust account, obviously. LawPay also allows your clients the ability to pay via check using an ACH account. So you can do that as well. and set that up. Okay, so you now have that all ready to roll, and we're just going to hit save. So that's now you have LawPay integrated into TimeSolv. There's a couple of steps here still before you can start accepting credit card payments through our portal. You'll want to go under clients to settings. Whoops, sorry about that. I did not mean to get back into my PowerPoint. So you want to go under clients and settings, and down here at the bottom you want to check the box enable portal. Now the client portal, as I've mentioned in some other sessions, is not just for accepting credit card payments. This client portal allows you to give access for your customers, your clients, to be able to see all time entries you've ever done, billed entries only or no entries, same thing with expenses and so on. But you can also say, yeah, I want to accept payment, all portal invoice payments, and I want to do it in the operating account here. And here's operating account 2 if you'd like. Okay, that we set up. Excuse me. And one other important thing we're not going to go into today, but you can also allow the use of the trust balance when paying invoices. This allows you then to, if you have a trust account set up in LawPay, to accept payments into the trust account. You can also then require login for the portal or not. It's an option we give you. You could have it where you just send an email gets sent to your client and they have a link that gets them right to the client portal without having to create a username and password. It's fast, it's convenient. If you don't feel comfortable doing that and your client doesn't feel comfortable doing that and they want to set up an account, a login, you would simply check this box here. Okay? All right, so now we have the client portal enabled. And let's see how it looks from the client side of the world. What you end up doing to give a client access to the portal, you want to go to the actual client and matter or the client you're dealing with. In this case, I'm going to use this Wednesday webinar 2 matter. And I have a contact in here called, originally enough, February webinar. Once I've set them up here as the contact, you'll notice on the contact information there is an area right here in this row. Do they have portal access? Are you going to give portal access to this contact? The answer right now is yes. I'm going to check it. I'm going to hit update. And then I could create a portal login for this person if I wanted to, and I could give them a login name and a temporary password that you could give them, and then they could then set up their own password they'd like to use. Whoops, I shouldn't have hit cancel there. Let's go back here. We can also just grant automatic portal access, and when I click on this, that's going to send an email to the contact to allow them to log in to the portal. So let me check my email over here, and this should be coming through. Do we ever really have anybody that goes below this deep down? And he said no, I think the deepest they've ever seen is up to 3 approval levels, but you have up to 9. Okay. So you can see that, now I am, as Scott Laidlaw, the approver for Tony Hill. And then on the flip side, I could go to my account here and see who all am I an approver for. And it shows me I'm an approver for these 3 people at level 1 for time. And you could do time and expense. I've kind of skipped over everything with the expense entry side of things. Is exactly the same. You go into expense settings and it's the same thing. Enable expense approval by matter or by professional. Notify approvers via email and so on. If you have it set up that you do want to enable time approvals by the matter, what you do is you go under clients, matters, find that particular matter. So again, we'll go back to the Wednesday webinar. Let's say it's this one here. And once you've checked that box, this will appear in the general settings in the right column, require approval for time. You're going to check the box, say yes, for this matter, I want to require approval for time, and if we'd done expenses, expenses would have been over here too. Once you hit save, then you manage the approvers, and I want to say, yeah, I'm this person here. I'm going to be the approver for anybody who enters time for this matter. Again, it doesn't matter who the professional is, doesn't matter if I'm an approver for somebody else. I approve all time for this matter, and then you can do it for expenses as well. Okay? So I'm going to uncheck this box. So let's see how the approval then process happens and what it looks like. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out here as as Scott Laidlaw, and log in as Tony Hill. So let's log in as Tony Hill. Okay, so let's put in some time entries for that Wednesday. We'll just stick with the Wednesday webinar matters. And I'm going to say we did 5 hours and we did a conference call, whatever it might be. Now notice when he creates this, or I've created this for him, it shows here that the status is that this time has been submitted for approval at level 1. So it's just hanging out there, it's been submitted. That's it. So now as it's not going to be placed on an invoice, it's just there. So let's log back in as Scott Laidlaw, myself, I'm his approver. I will see now, I have under this time setting, approve time. Tony Hill doesn't see that. He doesn't have this option in his settings. So I go under time. I've gotten the emails saying I have time to approve. So I go in here under time, approve time. And here's going to be my list of time entries I have to approve. And here's the one that was just put in. Okay, and I can take a look at it. I can see he did a conference call with the client to discuss the matter and so on. I can either then choose to approve it or reject it. I can also put in public comments, and what those essentially are comments that Tony Hill will see. It's not public comments that are going to be placed on an invoice. So that, just to be clear on that. So I can put in, I'm going to reject this, and I'm going to say that the public comments are that you exceeded the budget for this task. And the private comments, this is for myself, for my own notes, is make sure Tony knows what the budget for hours are for this task. And I'm going to hit save. Now Tony Hill is going to get an email notifying him that that time has been rejected. And let's go and look at, if I look at that time entry for Tony Hill, I'm going to show you the difference between that public and private comments. As the administrator of this TimeSolve account, I can see and do time entries for anybody. So I'm going to look at Tony Hill's time entries. There it is. It's been rejected. I hover over it, and it tells me the private comments. Make sure Tony knows that the budget for hours are exceeded for this task. But when I log in as Tony Hill, and I see that same rejected and I hover over it, it just has these comments, you exceeded the budget for this task. It doesn't see those private comments. Those private comments were just for me to remember why I rejected it. And then the public ones are what he sees. Again, the clients are not going to see this. It's not going to be placed on the invoice. And Tony Hill, as I mentioned, and I just heard in my ear there, a little chime from my email came through telling me that this is, Tony Hill has the same email as I do, that the following time card has been rejected by the approver, Scott Laidlaw. And it tells me, here's the comments as to why. Exceeding the budget for this task. So once if they are rejected, then they get an email saying that it's been rejected and why. They don't get an email once it's been approved. The process just keeps moving down the line. So I don't believe, although you know what? I didn't even check that. Let's check to see that. I'm actually kind of curious if Tony Hill will get an email when it's been approved. I haven't even checked on that yet. I knew they get one when they get rejected, which is clearly a little bit more important to take note when a time entry's been rejected. So let's go back to approved time, and I want to see rejected. There's a rejected time entry, And I'm going to go ahead and change it to approved and hit save. So if I get an email here in another minute or so, we'll know that Tony Hill does get an email saying that it was approved. So that's how the time, and everything I showed you works exactly the same for expense entries. And I won't go through that because it is, you would see the expense, once it's set up. I don't have it turned on or have any that I need to approve. I would see approve expenses and so on. So that's how you go about approving time, again, before it's ever placed on an invoice. A very efficient way of running and making sure that all time entries are exactly the way they should be before they're placed on an invoice. And so your attorneys are not doing, or your senior partners are not doing reviewing of invoices. They don't have to do a lot of review of draft invoices if they've already approved the time and expense entries that go on there. So that's an important sort of caveat. Okay, let's take a look at our last tip for the day, and that is our newest feature in TimeSolve, and that is custom fields. Setting up custom fields either for the client or matter, and the ability to add default values if you'd like. So for custom fields, this is something that we've gotten asked about a lot from customers is, can I create custom fields to put information, whatever type of information you want to put? And we didn't have a lot of flexibility with that for a while. Really, the closest we could come with previous to this new release was creating kind of categories. You could create different client categories, subcategories. You could call them what you wanted. And that, had worked to a degree, but it wasn't really what people were looking for. So now when you go under clients and settings, and this just came out last week, so you should already see this here. Under clients and settings, we now have an additional tab called custom fields. When you click on that, you have the ability to create custom fields for at the client level and the matter level. Okay? And I've already created, as you can see, a few custom fields here. And let's create a new one and see how you can work with it. So you click on new custom field and you can name it, whatever. Let's just call it field 4. And then you get to choose what type of field do you want. And here is your options. There is going to be, I believe, another release later this week that's going to add one more option to this type, and that is a drop-down selection. So you'll be able to create multiple options and select, you could say, I guess I can't even think of a good example right now, but you have the ability to create a drop-down option field. But as of right this minute, here are the options you have. Either a single text line, a larger text area. As you can see, you get a larger area here that people can choose from. Currency is simply, basically, if you want to do a number of some sort. The date plus time, a date range, a date time range, somebody's email address, and it'll be the type of email. You have to validate it it has to be validated as a good email address by having the @ symbol basically, or just a number. So in this case, I'm doing field 4. It's by default number 4 in the list of how it'll look under the clients and matter, under the clients in this case. So let's go back and let's take a look at any client now. I'm going to say Best Buy. And they now have this tab, Custom Fields, and this is the order that we put it in. One interesting thing, when you have a date, time range, which is what I have here, or just date, time, when you click on it, you can choose the date. If you want to click the time, you actually can, to change it quickly, you can click on it one at a time. You can see what I'm doing here, and it's in military time, the exact time. Or if you want to do it fast, as it mentions, if you hold down the shift key, click and hold, and then drag to the left and it goes down, drag to the right and it goes up. All I'm doing right now is holding on the shift key while doing this, but I obviously can't see, and I clicked on the field. So shift, click, and then drag. Kind of an interesting way to quickly put it to the time you want if you want to. So the next obvious question is, what if I want to rearrange these fields? second obvious question to me was, can you make columns? Left column, right column. The answer is no, you can't do columns as of right now. And the second answer to my first question is how to reorder the fields as they appear. If you want field 4, let's say, to move up and be field 2, you simply come in here to edit, say I want it to be 2, hit save, and it automatically rearranges everything else and gives them the new order. So you don't have to go into each new one, each field, and reorder the numbers. It does it for you automatically. Eventually, we'd like to get this to be a kind of a drag and drop ability, and that's not in place as of right now. The other thing we'd like to see coming is the ability to name this tab, whatever you'd like to name it, instead of custom fields, be able to label this something that is important and unique to your firm. So again, you can do that for clients, you can do that for matters. As of right now as well, these custom fields are really just here for reference in your clients and matters. And what I mean by that is these custom fields are not available to be placed on reports that can be generated or be downloaded with their information, like into a CSV file, an Excel file, a PDF, whatever it might be. That's sort of the next step on our development horizon, is to the ability to place custom fields onto reports. You cannot, if you have custom fields that came from other systems of some sort, we don't have the ability right now to import that. You have to kind of grow them here within TimeSolv. So this is a new development for TimeSolv, and we're hoping to grow the features within the custom fields. But we feel like this gives at least the flexibility to start using the fields as you see fit, and knowing that perhaps some of this reporting stuff will come down the line. Okay, so that's custom fields. Look for that additional field type coming in the next week or so, where you can have a drop-down field, a drop-down select list as a type, and that's going to do it for all of our four items for today's webinar. I ask if anybody has any questions for any of the 4 things that I covered, from enabling the client portal to receive LawPay credit card payments, to the approval process, to consolidated invoices, to the custom fields. Please ask your questions now in that Q&A chat bubble that you see at the top of your screen. And in the meantime, I will mention too that I think in the recording that I did, somehow it was paused for about 10 minutes, I believe, during, I think it was the part I was talking about consolidated invoices. So be forewarned when I send out the link on the with the recording, that there might be a time gap that doesn't make much sense. So the other thing I want to make sure everyone remembers is if you have any questions, you can always email us at support@timesolv.com. Call our general support line, 1-800-715-1284, or you can get in direct contact with your account manager. If you're not sure who your account manager is, you can email me and I can look them up. It would be whoever was the person that helped you onboarding to TimeSolv, perhaps put you through your initial training. That would be the person who is your account manager, and they are dedicated to making sure that you are successful in using TimeSolv, getting the most out of TimeSolv. There are a lot of features, as I try to show you here every month, that people may not know that could help make their firm more efficient and get their invoices and bills paid faster, easier, and all that good stuff. So, well, as I was kind of wasting time there, I didn't see anybody put in any chat questions, so I guess I'm going to take that as I've done my job and that there are no questions, and I clearly explained those 4 items today. So with that being said, we're at about almost 12:45 here in Central Time Zone, 45 minutes like I mentioned, and I won't take up any more of your time. So mark your calendars for Wednesday, April 11th, and we will see you then. So have a great day, everybody, and take care.